This is Mitch, and welcome to the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. I have Brecht Palombo with us today, and he's going to teach you how to go direct to the banks. Very interesting concept because he's making it easy for you. They actually have a giveaway coming on later in the show where they've simplified where are the banks, who are they, and what are the contacts, and what's their contact name and number. So they've really made it, done a lot of legwork for us. So with no further ado, how you doing, Brecht?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on, Mitch.
Hey, where are you sitting today right now? Where are you at?
Bend, Oregon.
Bend, Oregon. Oh, beautiful, huh?
Yep. Just getting through our long winter here and coming into a glorious spring. So happy to be here.
Ready for some sunshine, maybe?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm over here in San Antonio, Texas. We're going to be talking about going direct to banks, right? So, and finding some killer deals there.
Yep.
How long have you been doing this?
Let's see. So I started in real estate in 2000. I went independent and started getting ready for to work with banks in late 2006. And I opened this business and the software that maybe we'll talk about in 2009.
Okay, 2009.
Yeah.
So, what were you doing before, may I ask? I'm just curious.
I was part of the .com, like in the mid-late 90s. I was in sales for, I sold a bunch of boring stuff. I sold SQL optimization software, like database optimization software and that kind of thing, and training and consulting. When I got spit out of the .com, that first .com crash, as opposed to the impending one, I said, all right, well, I can sell. And I was one of these guys we're running around selling vaporware. The company's like, hey, we're going to make something great. Go sell it. We're like, great. What is it? They're like, we're going to figure it out. Just get out there and sell it. And so when that ended, I said, well, what can I sell where there's always product? And that brought me to real estate. Because I really feel like it's one of the few places where, as long as you do the work, you can really earn, whatever you want and regardless of the cycle. So
yeah, I like real estate because if you pick the right strategy, you can do something right once and it can pay you for the rest of your life. You know what I mean?
True.
So
Yep.
that's cool. So you're techie? You're techie. You're a tech guy.
I am the business end of this business. I'm not the tech side. I guess I'm a good bridge between the tech folks and the non-tech folks, because I won't sit down and write code or anything like that, but I know how to get it built. So I guess that's kind of where I am. I'm definitely a numbers guy. I've got, I didn't complete my CCIM, but I've got a lot of investment training and stuff. So I'm definitely a heavy duty numbers guy. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk to us. I mean, when I think about going to banks, I think about a lot of red tape and bureaucracy, and no one can really make a decision. So it's going to take a long time to figure all this out. And so I've shied away from it. Of course, we're all limited by our beliefs, right?
Right.
So I'm interested to talk to you because I'd like to change that belief system. And
Yeah.
where do we start?
So that's a good question. And that can definitely be true, especially depending on the size of the bank. And so, if you're looking to work with someone like Bank of America or Wells Fargo and, US Bank, these kinds of banks are really big. They have lots and lots of layers of all different levels of vice president and committees and special servicers. And that's a really hard thing to navigate. On the other side of that is that there are more than 11,000 banks and credit unions in the US. And the ones that we're talking about right now that are huge bureaucracies are really only a very small slice at the top. And so the sweet spot, if you're looking to go direct, is to work with your local, community, and regional banks. You're going to find that these folks, yes, they're regulated. And yes, the numbers are still, for most people in real estate, the numbers are still kind of big. But the fact is that a lot of them run like a lot of small businesses would, and you'll have your CEOs, and you'll have your SVPs or whatever who do their thing, but they're real people who you can get in there and you can have a real conversation with, as opposed to some of these much bigger organizations with call centers and that kind of thing.
Yes. So, I use private banks. I create notes, and I don't want to sell them. I just want to collect the money, but I use private money to do that. And I went to the big banks didn't want to understand how to, I don't know, loan against a note. They didn't want to know about it, or they acted like they had never heard of it before in their life.
Yeah.
Of them. And so I went to the community banks, like you said. A lot of times the grandfather or great grandfather that started the bank, there's still people with the same last name sitting on the board, and they're business people, and you can go in there and you can tell them about your business plan and what your plan is, and they can rationalize, that this is a good loan or a bad loan for them. Yep. And so, I believe wholeheartedly what you're saying with those community banks, and there's a lot more of them than you think, because as you're driving down the road, they just pass by. You don't even really take note of them until you start thinking you need them for some reason, and then you start to notice them everywhere. They're all over the place. There's little bitty tiny no-name banks all over the place, and especially when you get to rural America, there's not as many, of course, because it's rural and small towns, but it seems like all these small towns have their one or two banks that everyone banks with down there, and you've never heard of them in your life. So
that's true.
I
have in fact now, so I haven't been I'm running this business full time, and this we have a team and all that, and so I don't take client work, but the last time that I did, I was working with a guy who's a private investor, and they did hard money and note buying basically. And he bought a little tiny gas station and convenience store note from a bank. This is a bank with 2 branches on a little island off of Massachusetts, if you ever heard of Nantucket. And so tiny little bank, nobody would ever notice. You can't even, it's on an island. You have to get on a boat or a plane to go see the thing. He bought that note. I think face on it was, not quite $2 million, something like that. He bought that note for a little over $900,000. And we foreclosed and sold that thing to an end buyer in under 30 days for $1.2 million. And so I forget the exact numbers there, but I know that he ended up walking with about $360K from a deal that he bought that we processed, like I say, in under 2 months from a little tiny local bank. And the reason is that they didn't want to have this thing on their books. They didn't want to get in the chain of title. They didn't want the risk of having to deal with that. And so for that reason, they were able to do that. And that's just one bank. And like I say, there's, thousands of banks. There's over 11,000, almost 11,500 banks in the U.S. Most of them you never ever heard of.
The bank took like a $600,000 haircut?
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. It's not emotional. They have, $600,000 to you or me is one thing. $600,000 to a multi-billion-dollar bank, or what value are these banks at? Are they worth it?
Well, so I think that's not it. They vary, right? And you have to have a certain minimum even to be a bank, and then beyond that, there's credit unions. You get a little bit smaller. And
my point was, it's not emotional, and it's just a day in the life for them, and.
That's the thing is what people, so that's why I originally started pursuing banks is, look, the writing was on the wall in terms of where we were at cyclically in the economy. I said, all right, now if things go south and they look like they might, where do you want to be? I think you want to be next to the sellers who can still sell, if that's your business, which at the time it was. And so what I started looking at was, when I first started in real estate, I'm out there running around. I started like every Joe on downtown Boston, running around doing rentals, right? It's like there's nothing. It's like pretty thankless work. You're turning keys. You're hoping something happens. Then I started thinking, well, this isn't the best. How am I going to build a sustainable business where I'm not constantly prospecting? And I started moving into the investor market. And so started doing a lot of like small individual investment sales because those are folks who, you could do multiple deals with over the course of a year. Then I went to this auction where I watched a guy sell 36 assets in about an hour and a half. I think it was like, 15 or $20 million in sales. I was like, holy crap, what, like that I would much rather be doing, he did a year's worth of business in an afternoon. Where did this come from? And it came from the banks. And that's just the thing, is that lenders are always making loans. Some of those loans are always going bad. And then those loans will either be sold or they'll be foreclosed on. And this happens in good times and bad. In more difficult times, we see a lot more of it and we see deeper discounts. And in times like these right now, we're a little peaky, a little frothy. We're seeing tighter numbers, but that doesn't change the fact that this is a continuous cycle where they're just processing it through. There are people, it's their job. They're not entrepreneurial folks. They come in the morning and, they've got their briefcase with a bologna sandwich in it. They're hoping to get out by 4:30 to see their kids' soccer game. And in the middle, they need to sell some assets. And files are landing on their desk and they're hoping they can make these go away and they can look good for the boss so they can get a promotion. And that's their whole job. And so they're repeat sellers of discounted and distressed assets, and it happens all the time. So that's exactly why I went after them, and why I think that for you to establish a little niche where you are, where you have, I like to say that if you can just 5 to 10 lenders, if there are 5 to 10 lenders who, you can pick up the phone and they'll do a deal with you, that's a pretty good book of business right there. You don't even need more than that.
That's interesting. I was just thinking, I did a bank deal. We're in the middle of it right now. It's a million. The house is appraised at $1,069,000. The bank let us buy the defaulted note for $400,000 more or less, and the guy's $100,000 behind. And so we bought, the note, and we bought the arrearage. And so we sent out the foreclosure notice, saying, bring the $100,000 and get the note caught up, or we'll foreclose on the house. So it looks like we're going to get the house. And so that may be one of the sweetest deals I've done in my entire career. I deal in a whole bunch of little stuff.
Yeah.
Just mountains of it. You know what I mean? I buy about 100 houses a year and I sell them with owner financing.
Okay.
I sell them on 30-year notes, no balloons.
Yeah.
And I've worked out the underlying financing with private people. And so I was just thinking, I really should apply myself more to the banks around here, because I have a proven track record for 24 years. I can make some claims that most people can't make.
Yep.
And then I can, I should be trusted to close on their asset if I say I'm going to buy it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because I would say, so I worked for, I've liquidated a lot of stuff for banks, few hundred assets, a couple $100 million in sales. And I've had plenty of them sell before they ever got to me. So my contact sells it to someone like you. And I can tell you that the number one thing, in my experience, the number one thing that the lender wants once they engage with someone like you, Mitch, is to know that you're the real deal. And so when they do not want to do a retrade. When they work out a deal with you, you put something down on paper. They want to, if you get that all the way to the close, they'll call you again. If you jerk them around, they will not call you again. You're off the list. And so it's really important that you stick to your word and that you perform.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking back, some of the best deals I've ever made were through the banks. And I guess gets down to that bottom line. They're just not emotional.
That's right. It's all numbers driven. And that's one of the things that we try to focus on when we're talking to folks about how to approach this, is you begin with the numbers and understanding what their numbers are, which numbers motivate them, which are indicators that they're good sellers, or maybe that they're not, and how that all works, because they are very much a numbers driven and not an emotion driven organization when it comes to sales.
Okay, so talk to me about, we got some giveaways. We got a couple of giveaways we talked about. I don't know if you're giving away both of them or one of them, but
Sure.
what do you got to offer to give people a taste about what this business is about and how to, I think you said it best. It was a little flash course. There was a little flash course with about 6 videos that could get you your eyes open to what's going on here. It was called a mini course called Bank Direct, I guess is what you said. And then you
Yeah.
also have a free streaming webinar. Tell us, are you offering to give both of those away this week, or are you just going to give one of them away, or what do we want to do?
Yeah, I guess it depends on how folks want to consume it. For me, I like to be able to sit down and get the whole picture and go through it. And so if you're that type of person and you want to have an understanding of that, you should attend our free streaming web class, because what we do there is I break down the entire process from the numbers that you need to understand to an approach to take, like a systematic approach to take to find these deals. And then at the end, we actually will give you away, we call it our DIY kit. So we have a zip file package that has, if you go through the web class, and we do make an offer at the end if you decide that you want to get more involved. But if you decide that you don't want to get involved, we give you the zip file that has everything that you need in order to go do this stuff yourself. You're going to do your own legwork. You're going to do your own research.
Okay.
And that's about an hour-long course. The other thing that you could do is we do have a 6-video mini course. That's a little bit lighter touch. We don't get as deep into it, but if you want to just get a glancing blow on the thing and kind of understand it a little bit better, that's a good way to go without a big time commitment. And I guess you'll have a couple of links for that.
Yeah. So go to ariinvestorsummit.com/go bank direct. Go Bank Direct, and that'll get you over to the show notes. And in the show notes are going to be links to the mini course Bank Direct and to the free streaming webinar. Pick either one that you want, and then, like he said, if you've got enough information and you're one of those AAA ready, aim, fire guys and want to go out on your own and take a run at it, you got plenty of information there and forms. But if you think you need a little coaching, then that's going to happen. You'll have that choice as well. Now, you know what I say. I always say, you're going to pay for the education one way or the other. You're going to pay for it. The street's going to charge you, either in lost deals or things or money you stepped over that you didn't see, or you pay a coach. I just think it's a lot less anxiety to pay a coach and calm down and go to your corner when you're getting the hell punched out of you, and go back to your corner and have someone to talk to you about how you're going to keep from getting your nose broke on this deal, So that's my opinion. It's always been my opinion. I'm not saying it has to be me, and I'm not saying it has to be him. I'm just saying, get somebody who, and I like to say this, who you want to be like on and off the field, in business and in life. I mean, it's, you don't want to stand next to people that are turds in their personal life. It'll all rub off somewhere. And so go to ariinvestorsummit.com/go bank direct. So tell us about the Bank Prospector, and this is something you're selling. You sell the Bank Prospector, is that right?
Yeah. So this software has been around since I created it in 2009. And what happened was I was out there kind of banging my head against the wall, looking to get Bank Direct deals. I ended up hooking up with, and at that time I had I had a couple of projects of my own, but I was also full-time was a broker and was an auctioneer. So I had licenses in all the New England states. And I was out there looking for, how am I going to find these deals? And much to your point about mentorship, I ended up finding this guy who really knew what he was doing. And he and it cost me a lot of money, mostly in commission splits over a period of years. It's funny when I hear about people talking about, the expensive courses and that kind of thing. I go, expensive courses, try splitting deals for a few years. You know what I mean? Then you want to talk about expense, we're deep into 6 figures for that. So anyway, and what I learned from him was a lot about how things worked internally at a bank. And then I learned about these numbers that the FDIC and the FFIEC put out, which really give some indicators about who's got what and who's a good seller. but it's time consuming. You have to download these giant spreadsheets, you have to pull them apart, figure out what you're doing with them. It's not made for this purpose. And so what we built was a software that goes out and it pulls in all of the bank and all of the credit union data. And now we're talking about millions and millions of rows of data. But what we do is only pull out the parts that are important to folks like you and I. And we make that easy to search. And then we pair that with contact data. And so we have full-time contact managers who their only job, they have a special web interface that we built for them. And their only job is finding, vetting, cleaning, and getting contacts for folks. And so what we try to do is eliminate all the sort of research work that you would have to do and just get you right down into the source so that instead of like weeks or months of digging through spreadsheets and stuff, it's a few clicks and boom, you've got the right person to talk to. That's really our goal.
Is this data that you're pulling out to show us, is that the foreclosed properties? Is it showing you what they have that they need to liquidate, or what data are you showing us?
So that's a good question, and I'm glad you asked that. So a couple things. There is no reporting of the status of individual whole loans in the US. Now, this is different if you're a mortgage-backed security or CMBS or something like that. There's detailed reporting because it's a security and there needs to be this sort of public-facing stuff. But if you're looking for the status of Joe Jones's loan across the street, that thing's not reported on an individual basis anywhere. And so the next best thing that we have instead is portfolio level data down to by asset type. Okay. So that's one of the things that we show you. Now, the other thing that happens is that a lot of, there's so many systems out there right now where they're trying to show you all the REO, the fact is that the way that REO is, I'll just give you an example. I had 3 different banks that I worked with where if you were tasked with going to find in the registry of deeds, now this is an online registry where you can go in there and you can see everything. If you were tasked with going and finding which properties these banks owned, you would never ever find them. And the reason is that what banks do, a lot of banks do, is they have a sort of a bad bank. And so they have a little corporation or multiple corporations that hold bad assets in their name. So you're not gonna log on, you're not gonna go somewhere and pull up TD Bank's REO because they don't hold it under TD Bank. They hold it under completely separate corporations. And so what that means is that it makes a lot of the reporting that you see out there for REO balances not really that accurate because it's just not clean data because you're never going to know which banks are doing this or what their corporations' names are and all that. And so, so our approach, rather than an asset level and then crawling your way up approach, rather than I'm going to find 123 Main Street, then I'm going to find out who the lender is, then I'm going to find out who the special assets person is in charge of this asset. Instead of doing that, what we say is, what if we start at the top level and we say, which institutions should we be going after? Who in that institution is responsible for the portfolios? And then they give you the list of assets, because that's really how you create the back channel and you get the back door. It's not by going through like public records, because you're going to miss an awful lot like that. And it doesn't tend to be the way banks work. Banks tend to work with people. You end up going in there, you find a person and you engage with the person. That's how you
imagine it could be a problem if they were disclosing personal information in the public forum saying so-and-so is behind on their mortgage.
Yeah.
That might
never happen. Yeah.
So I get it. So you're just trying to talk to the asset manager or the REO asset manager and impress them and get on their list of viable candidates to liquidate properties to. It doesn't sound like rocket science. It's just got to do the legwork, got to make the phone calls, got to make the friends, and got to create a network, right?
That's right. And so what we try to do is make all that stuff that you just said, which you can say it in one sentence, but it's a lot of work. And so what we try to do is compress that and eliminate a lot of that work for you.
Yeah. So is there like follow up with these guys and Christmas cards and all that stuff, or is
Absolutely. It not? Yeah. We talk about a couple of different systems. But I strongly recommend that you have an introduction system. So this is going to be how I'm going to introduce myself to these lenders, and so they'll know me by the end of it, and then a follow-up system. Because the thing about these folks is that while they're in there with their bologna sandwich or whatever, day to day, you might call them today and they might have nothing. They could have a file land on their desk tomorrow that their superior wants out the door before the end of Q2, and you need to be there when that needs to go. And so
you have to keep the top of mind awareness with these guys. You got to stay in front of them for when, because if they're really doing their job, they don't have a lot of delinquents. You know what I mean? If they're doing a good job, but when one comes around, they need to think, Brecht Palombo. I'm going to call that.
Yep, that's exactly right. Yep. And so,
well, what the heck with Brecht? Why don't you call Mitch? Just call Mitch.
That's right.
Okay, so it sounds like there's more minutia to it than meets the eye. And so, if you guys are interested in hooking up with that software, just go to reinvestorsummit.com/Go Bank Direct. There'll be a link for that too. What do you call it? They call it the Bank Prospector, right?
Bank Prospector, yeah. And on the free streaming web class, what we'll do is we're going to teach you 7 questions you can answer about your prospect before you ever pick up the phone. We're going to teach you a 3-step proven prospecting system. And then we're going to give you some of the tools to implement with that. And so we have people who regularly will go to this class multiple times and take notes and go off and implement on their own without engaging us at all. And we're happy to do that. We're happy to provide that sort of depth of information for folks.
Okay, so I don't normally do this, but you've got me curious and I want to know, so I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to preface it with this. Brecht's had this software out since 2009. It's been working. It's something that he probably has to keep updated all the time. And works hard at.
Full company, developers, all that. Yep. Okay.
And he has the right to change his price anytime he wants to. Okay. So, But today, how much is it?
Today we have contact level pricing. So it really depends on, there's a couple of different things. One is, all right, let me back up. We have training and we have software. And what happened was I released the software and I had a lot of people sign up for it at the beginning, and they said, I don't know what the heck to do with this. I don't know who to call. I don't know what to say, none of this. I thought I was just going to be, I'm a numbers guy. So I thought I'm just going to give all these people these numbers and they'll be excited and that'll be great. And they were, but they didn't know what to do with it. And so we had to create some training. And so we've got sort of different levels of folks. Some people come in and they've never done anything before. And then some folks come in and they've done more deals with banks than I have. And so those folks don't need the training. And so for just Bank Prospector, if you're just getting the software, then we have 3 levels of, at 100, 200, and 500 a month. And that is based on your contact volume. Now, some of our customers will come in and maybe they're a hedge fund and they get a power dialer, and they're going to sit somebody down and their whole job is to take our data and plow through it. Well, they're on the $500 a month plan so they can get all the contacts. If you're looking to work locally or even regionally, either the $100 or the $200 a month. And if you do for a year, what we do is we give you 2 months free is the way that works. Okay. And then training varies depending on what you need.
Well, you don't have to make many deals to make that work. You know what I mean? So
yeah, about a little less than one.
A little less than one deal.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know. Anything you want to say to the listeners here, maybe before we wrap up? I'm going to say this audience is probably a really, really good prospect for exactly what you're showing here.
Yeah.
You've got me more interested in it now. I may become one of your customers myself, because we're always looking at different avenues. We call them lanes to open. Yeah. And where I have 4 acquisition managers that every morning when they wake up, all they're doing is trying to find the next deal. And they don't do anything else but that for my company. And this looks like a really great lane. I would like to explore it myself a little bit. And if I think it's a pretty viable course in my area, whatever, which it should be. I mean, if you do the work, I'm sure it pays, because it's just like the other strategy. They all work if you work them, and they don't work if you don't work them. You know what I mean? So,
well, you're in San Antonio.
Yes, sir.
So I've got a customer, Joe Bayarena, who bought a package of 31 assets out of a tiny little bank based out of San Antonio. And the reason they sold that little portfolio of notes was because it wasn't because they weren't even non-performing. They were just, and they weren't out of covenant. They no longer fit their lending box. And so they took a haircut and moved these things along. And so you never know what reasons they have or what motivations they have in there to sell. But I'd say this, if I was going to leave you with anything here is, I think in real estate, it's, most of us, at least at the beginning, it's all private seller stuff, And the problem with private seller stuff is they most of the time have one deal. You do all this work for prospecting and then you do one deal. And so I'd encourage you to think about what would it look like if I had just even a small number of institutional sellers where we do repeat deals, quarter after quarter or year after year. Doesn't take very many in order to have a good book of business if you're doing repeat deals. And when you know that you can count on at least a little bit like that, it relieves some of that constant pressure that anybody in this business has if you want to keep deal flow happening, right? You always got to keep marketing. You always got to keep prospecting. But if you could get a couple of repeat sellers in your quiver there, then I think that is a really good way to insure yourself in your business.
Well, I agree 100%. And just looking at the one, I've done several bank deals in my career, not nearly enough. And I always have shied away from it, but now you've got me really interested in thinking maybe there's another lane there to add to one of my acquisition managers' repertoire, or to do myself, because I kind of like talking to the bankers, because when you talk to all the bankers, when you get with those guys, they're the ones that take you to the basketball games and you sit on the front row, and they got tickets to every event in the world. So, maybe that'll just be one I just do myself. It's more of a socializing thing to me. And that's kind of what I'm into right now, is raising private money and dealing with banks and finding more funding. So it kind of fits right along with what I do. So you're probably going to hear from me shortly after we hang up here. So
great.
All right. So you guys go take advantage of the mini course, Bank Direct, little 6 videos, little flash 30,000 foot overview. Or if you want to get deep into it, you'll go to the show notes here, and I'll give you the link in a second, and you'll watch the free streaming video. Free streaming webinar, okay? Which is a little over an hour long, where we were talking earlier before the show. Brecht says that people go back and watch it over and over again, because he's not selling on this thing. He's teaching in this webinar. So
we do make an offer at the end, but I'm a big believer in that. I don't want to waste your time. I'm not going to just pass it, but I'm not going to show you pictures of checks and that kind of thing and then ask you to put in your credit card. I'm going to make sure I leave you with something and you really understand what you're doing when we're done.
Yeah, he said something very interesting. I don't know if you caught it, but he says, if you want to go ahead and start doing it yourself, go ahead. He's going to give you what you need to start. But
absolutely,
if you think you need some hand holding and some coach, get a coach in your corner that knows what they're doing, has been down the road, then you'll have the chance to do that too. So real reasonable thing to ask. And if you don't want to do it, he's still educating us for over an hour here on this free streaming webinar. So go to investorsummit.com/go bank direct. Go bank direct. And that'll get you there. Man, I appreciate you taking the time to come on, Brecht.
It's my pleasure, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
All right. And if you ever make it down to San Antonio, look me up.
All right.
And we'll go. I got a place out in the country out here, about 600 acres, and we do all kinds of hunting and photography. If you're not into hunting, then we'll take pictures of them. We got cameras. So
I'll shoot them.
Oh, good. Okay. All right.
All right.
See, your price just went way down to nothing.
All right.
So I like to shoot hogs. I shoot hogs just like every week. I go out there. We're over hogs.
Yeah.
So we go to the ranch and mess around. So make sure you look me up. If I'm in Bend, Oregon, I'm going to find you too. Okay?
Yeah, definitely do that.
I need to get there. They got some pretty good wine there, don't they? Am I talking about the right place?
Yeah, just Oregon, Washington both have pretty great wine. We've got a real outdoors thing here. I guess with the folks are hunting deer and elk most of the time around here. We don't have a hog problem, but
Yeah. All right, man. I'd like to thank everybody for stopping by to get you some Brecht Palombo. This is Mitch Stephen with the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. Hope you guys are achieving your goals and stay out there. Keep getting educated, my friends. You got to stay educated or else you just can't get anything done here. Shorten the learning curve. All right, we're out of here. Thanks, Brecht.
Thanks, Mitch.